Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to continue our college football predictions week 10. We're now into the double digit portions of the season. Last week I went 21 and 5, total season record 135 and 55. And I will say this week was going to be the week the first college football playoff rankings was going to come out, but I turned out I got my information wrong. It's actually next week when the first college football playoff rankings come out. We'll see. And when that comes out, we'll discuss it. But in the meantime, let's get to Friday Night Football with the North Carolina Tar Heels taking on the Syracuse Orange on Halloween. North Carolina once again losing at the goal line against University of Virginia, and Syracuse. Yeah, things have not gone well for this team. Injuries did destroy Syracuse, so I'm not going to put too much fault on them for that. But it's Friday night at home on Halloween. Syracuse better be wearing orange. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Qs to win this game. However, Carolina has played better football the last 2 weeks compared to, well, the rest of the season. So we'll have to see what happens there. Next we have, oh boy, Penn State taking on the. And this was supposed to be the game of the week, pretty much in the preseason when these two teams were clashing. But knowing that Penn State pretty much fell off a cliff, losers of four straight, both teams coming off a bye week, this game has a lot less going for it. And with the having the best defense in the league, it's between them and Indiana. It's a toss up there. The should not have any problem getting the win. Following that, we got the Vanderbilt Commodores taking on the Texas Longhorns. Vanderbilt picked up a huge ranked win over Maryland. Granted, Missouri rather. Missouri lost their quarterback to I think he broke his leg. Wish him nothing but a speedy and safe recovery there. Meanwhile, Texas, yeah, we need to have a conversation about this school. Yes, they won against Mississippi State, but to think about it, Mississippi State dominated pretty much 3.5 quarters. Texas, they had to use a come from behind win in overtime to get their win. And Texas is favored, and I kind of could see it because they're at home. And okay, I ain't expecting too much scoring in this one. I don't expect this to be a high scoring game. I'm gonna go ahead and give the slightest of edges to Texas, specifically on the defensive front. Following that, we got an ACC battle between the Miami Hurricanes taking on the SMU Mustangs. Miami last week got up to a bit of a slow start against Stanford, but then they utilized the running game to end up dominating them 42-7. Meanwhile, SMU lost their first regular season conference game in school history against Wake Forest. In the way that game was going, the highlights showed that pretty much neither team wanted to win that game. Seriously, every time Wake had a chance to win, they'll either fumble it away. SMU could not close them out, but Wake in the last drive did get the job done. They got the W. And with Miami being favored by double digits, I'm a little surprised it's that high of a spread. And even though they're still SMU, they're still going to put up points, even though last week was a pretty bad week for them. I'm still going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and take Miami, but I'm unsure if they're going to cover that. All I'm saying. And following that, we have West Virginia taking on Houston. And I'm just going to be quick on this one. I'm going to roll with Houston to win this game. 13-point favorites. They shouldn't have a problem. And following that, we have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights taking on the Illinois Fighting Illini. I was an idiot and picked Illinois on the road against Washington. Because Illinois, alright, they're a good team, but they're not an elite team. I should have seen that coming. They'll be taking on Rutgers. I think Rutgers coming off a bye week, and like the last time we saw them, they ended a losing streak against Purdue of all schools. With this game being played in Illinois, I am going to lean towards the home team in this situation. But again, Rutgers, they can pull off an upset. Just watch out for that. And following that, we have the Duke Blue Devils taking on the Clemson Tigers. Duke coming off a loss to Georgia Tech, and Clemson coming off a loss to SMU. Both teams last week had a bye week coming in coming into this, so and it couldn't come much better for Clemson as last time we saw them, their quarterback Cade Klubnik did not play as he was battling an injury. Will he come back in this one? As to be determined. And this is another one I kind of went back and forth on. Clemson is at home, but they only favor by 3 points. I'll go ahead and take Duke in this one. I am going to go with them a little bit just because I like their passing offense better. But if Cade Klubnik plays, who knows where I'll go there. And now we have UCF taking on Baylor. And I'm just going to go through this one a little quicker. I'll go ahead and take Baylor to win this one. Now we have Arizona State taking on Iowa State. Arizona State coming off a tough home loss against Houston, while Iowa State, they battled against BYU for the longest until BYU pulled away late, and now the Mormons, they have control of the conference. And with Sam Leavitt still battling injuries and me not being a believer in Jeff Sims, I'm taking Iowa State to end their 3-game losing streak and get to bowl eligibility. Now we have the Louisville Cardinals taking on the Virginia Tech Hokies. Virginia Tech's coming off a wild Friday night win over California. Meanwhile, Louisville, I think they're coming off a bye week. I have not seen what they did last week. Pretty sure they had a bye, but they're coming in double-digit favorites on the road against Virginia Tech. I'm taking Louisville to win. Then we have, oh boy, the CBS game for the Big Ten with Indiana taking on Maryland. Indiana, they just 50-point win over UCLA. Maryland's coming off a bye week, but we know they can't win in October, even though this game will be played on the first day of November, so who knows. But Indiana, they're on a mission, and with the easy schedule ahead of them, they should make the Big Ten championship game at best. And now we have the Florida-Georgia game being played in Jacksonville. Both teams coming off a bye week. While Georgia is coming off a win over Ole Miss, Florida is also coming off a win against Mississippi State, but they have some changes. If you've been living under a rock these last 2 weeks, Billy Napier was fired last week. And I've heard reports that even if he won that game, he was still going to get removed, as I think Florida want to get a head start on this coaching search. And I heard some pretty big names being considered for the coach. So that means the interim head coach is a guy named Billy Gonzalez. He is the wide receiver coach for this team. And yeah, these games are always close. I don't care if Florida is hot doo-doo garbage. They always find a way to make this game close because it's a rivalry game. It's a Florida-Georgia game. It's a Jacksonville game. But I'm still going to take Georgia to win. A bye week, they need to take some time to regroup. Hopefully reclaim the SEC. We'll have to wait and see about that. Fire Bill O'Brien. Now we have Texas Tech taking on the Kansas State Wildcats. Texas Tech, they got to win over Oklahoma State, which is not hard to do. And Kansas State pretty much owning the Kansas Jayhawks for like the 17th time in a row. And Texas Tech, they did have an injury as well. With their backup quarterback, I think his name is Hammond. He hurt him. I think he tore his ACL. He's out for the year. And like with Prebula, I wish him a speedy yet safe recovery. But I do get some good news as it looks like Morton's ready to come back and play, as he's missed the last couple of games with injuries of his own. And if that's the case, I'm gonna take Texas Tech to win this game. Now we got Michigan State taking on Minnesota. Michigan State losing to Michigan. What else is new? Minnesota, I think they lost last week. I can't remember who they lost to. It'll probably come back in my memory. But with Michigan State being one of the worst in the Big Ten, I'm gonna take Missouri to win. And following that, we have the Pitt Panthers taking on the Stanford Cardinals. Pitt getting a win over, I think it was this over NC State, and Stanford. Okay, they lost to Miami, but they lost to Miami. No one's beating them up over it. But Pitt is favored by double digits. I'm gonna go ahead and take Pitt to win this game. And and I don't know if I said this before, but they hold the key to the playoffs for several teams vying for a spot. We'll have to wait and see what happens when that happens. And now we have the Virginia Cavaliers taking on the California Bears. Virginia, yet another overtime victory over North Carolina. A low scoring game at that, but they kind of got lucky because Carolina went for two. They went for the kill, but they were unsuccessful doing it. Virginia, I could say this: they could easily be 4-4 right now if it wasn't for those overtime victories. Meanwhile, speaking of overtime, California coming off a loss on the road in overtime to Virginia Tech but it was on a Friday night long road trip. It happens. And with this game being played in Cal, Virginia's favored by 4. It's a it's a weird. This one probably will end up being a weird one, but I'm gonna go ahead and take Virginia to win this game. But you never know with California. We don't know what Cal team will show up. And now we have the Mississippi State Bulldogs taking on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Mississippi State's coming off a blowing it loss against Texas, while Arkansas, they played strong against Auburn, but they ended up folding late in the fourth quarter. And again, I feel bad for their quarterback because he's doing everything they can to win the game, but his team always finds a way to let him down. I'm just waiting for that guy to hit the portal. And with two bottom dwellers of the SEC, I'm still going to take Arkansas to win this game. They are favored, and they're at home, so that does give them an edge. But with Mississippi State, you never know with those games. Oh boy. We got Oklahoma State Cowboys taking on the Kansas Jayhawks. Oklahoma State coming off a shutout loss to Texas Tech. And Kansas is coming off a loss to Daddy, aka the Kansas State Wildcats. Favored by almost 25 points. Kansas should bounce back and get the win. Following that, we have the South Carolina Gamecocks taking on the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss coming off a road victory over Oklahoma. And South Carolina, they had the game won against Alabama, but they like Texas or Mississippi State rather, they blew it. They sold the game, and now looking at their remaining schedule, it's hard to tell if this team could go bowling or not. What a waste. Of Ole Miss at home at night, it's hard for me to go against that. Now we got Purdue and Michigan. Purdue's a mess. Michigan's coming off a win over Michigan State. Big house at night. I'm not going against that. And now we got the Arizona Wildcats taking on the Colorado Buffaloes. Colorado, they're coming off a blowout loss to Utah. While Arizona, I think they're coming off a bye week. And with two teams that should be better than what they expected to be, I think this could be a decent little game. But even though Arizona is favored, I'm actually gonna pick Colorado to win. They're at home. I think being at home does give them a little edge. Now we got Georgia Tech taking on NC State. Georgia Tech's coming off a win over, I believe they played Syracuse. And NC State's coming off a road loss to Pitt, where, I mean, sure, they put up 34 points, but some of those points came in garbage time. And once again, Georgia Tech is being undervalued on the road. They already went through one road battle where they were not favored against Duke and won it. In this game, they're barely favored in it. But State, yeah, they're not that good of a team. I gotta go against the undefeated Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets to win this one. And to think, they're undefeated, yet no one's giving them love. That's a problem for me. Now we got Oklahoma taking on Tennessee. Oklahoma's coming off a loss to Ole Miss. Tennessee's coming off a road victory over Kentucky, but their defense still does not look all that great. And you know what? I am going to pick Tennessee to win because they're at home. They can really use a home crowd and a home game at this point if they want to keep any hope of a playoff alive. I'm going to go with Tennessee to win. But I will say, this game could wind up being a high-scoring shootout. Now we got an NBC Saturday night game against USC taking on Nebraska. Nebraska got a win over Northwestern to put them in bowl eligibility. USC's coming off a bye week, where last time we saw them, they lost to Notre Dame. With USC being on the road and they're favored, I could go with Nebraska. I am expecting this to be a pretty good. I think this is going to be a pretty good game. I am going to pick USC to win this one. And following that, we have Kentucky taking on Auburn. Auburn ended a 4-game losing streak against Arkansas. Kentucky still winless, lost to Tennessee. Auburn's at home. I'm taking the Auburn Tigers to win this game. And now we have the Wake Forest Demon Deacons taking on the Florida State Seminoles. Wake getting a win at home over SMU. Florida State's coming off a bye week, but man, that school has fallen apart quickly at the seams. Anyone remember that they beat Alabama week 1, and then after that, it felt like they just didn't want anything else. Fortunately, favored at home, double digits, Florida State should win this game. But we've seen it in the past. This team has been favored at home by double digits, and they find a way to lose at home, while despite being favored by double digits. That Pitt game comes to mind. But I'm still going to take Florida State to win. Maybe the bye week could help regroup and refocus the guys heading into the final semi games of the season. Let's just go with that. And last but not least, our quote-unquote game of the week, and it's kind of an underwhelming pick for me. It's the Cincinnati Bearcats taking on the Utah Utes. Cincinnati's coming off a win. I can't remember against who, but Utah's coming off a blowout win over Colorado, and College Game Day will be at this one. And I'm honestly kind of shocked that they chose this one and not Tennessee and Oklahoma. But I guess they have their reasons. And not only this is the game of the week, this is also the After Dark game of the week. And with this one, Utah being at home, Cincinnati, and while Cincinnati is a good school, I'm gonna go ahead and take Utah to win this game. And I'm gonna end the prediction video on that. So tell me what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Please, and I mean emphasis on please, gamble safely. And I'll see you next time.